Hey guys, welcome to another video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're up late at night watching this, I just want to greet you from Las Vegas to all over the world. So today is going to be another topic of narcissism. I really feel like I have so much experience to offer in this situation, so it's something within me that just keeps compelling me to do videos and just to get it out, because I really feel like a lot of people experience this type of behavior, and I also feel like my testimony or my story will help other people to know and to understand that they can make it out of this type of situation, no matter who the person is, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a parent, whether it's a family member or a friend, whether it's a coworker. This is behavior that you can escape, and if it's a person that you cannot just refrain from being around because you work with them or whatever the case may be, this is something that you can set boundaries around and stand up for yourself to that person. So today I just kind of wanted to go into more depth about my experience with narcissistic behavior from my ex-husband. And I'm going to be breaking down some of the terms that a lot of people don't understand. I'm also going to be talking about different scenarios and experience that I had staying in the house with him, whether it be when we were married before or the second time around when we had to stay together, and the third and final time that we were living together in his home. So the first thing I want to discuss is just, and I'm going to be looking over from time to time because I have notes here, so don't mind me, I'm just going to give you all the information I have. So the first topic I'm going to be discussing is microaggressions. And at first I didn't really think that fit with narcissism, but it does for my situation, because the definition of microaggressions is basically indirect or subtle, unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group. So with that being said, with my situation with my ex-husband, I have watched him have a lot of microaggressional behavior towards women in his life, whether it be his sisters, whether it be his mother, whether it be other women that he was dealing with. And again, I've known this person since I was 19 years old. So I have had the pleasure of sitting back and watching his behavior time after time after time after time after time. And it'd be the same thing no matter what stage he was in his life. So when it comes to us living in the house together, he would do a lot of stuff. He would do a lot of this I don't really know what you would call it, but he would just do stuff like talk to me a certain type of way, like I was less than him because I was a woman. He would say certain things I'm smart. He would say stuff like that to kind of make me feel like, well, why do you even have to say that? If a person knows that they're smart, they're smart. And I just kind of felt like he was trying to subtly say, I'm smart and you're not. So he used to always constantly talk about submission when it comes to women submitting to men. But a lot of you guys know that a woman is going to submit to the man if the man is doing the right things. And he is a man that you can follow because he knows where he is going. He knows what he is doing. Not to say that he won't make mistakes, but he's not just frivolously and recklessly doing things and putting other people in danger. So anyway, he would say little things like that to me. He would always try to minimize what I was saying and just kind of make himself superior. So he will always try to do like little microaggressions. He will always, I don't know if this is a microaggression, but he would get really, really close to me. And what narcissists like to do is they like to make you squirm. So no matter, you know, however that looks like per the person. But he would like to get really close to me because he knew, in fact, he knew that I had kind of like an uneasiness of him being super close to me. And he will always be like, oh, your foot hurts, let me rub it. You know, you should let me rub your back. Because I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna go pay for a massage, you know, just talking, you know, because I really thought that I can open up and be vulnerable to him again, not in the sense of a relationship, but we're just two regular people, you know, who can relate. And I know that he's been through trauma, so I just kind of felt like, you know, we could just talk about whatever and it not become a big thing. But over time, as time went on, especially being in the house the last time that I could see that this is not the person that you can even go to or rely on for anything emotionally. Which leads me to the next point. A narcissistic person, they lack empathy. So, it says that they're someone who has trouble putting themselves in other people's shoes. So when it came to all these different types of things with people, he really lacked a lot of empathy unless he was using that for his benefit. Again, narcissistic people can do what's called future faking, and they will be pretending like they cared, pretending like this or that just to get a desired result, which is manipulation. So it will be times where I will be like, I didn't know what to call it, because prior to the last time of me living in this house, I didn't know what narcissism was. I didn't know that was even a thing. So I would just be like, you have a sensitivity, your sensitivity chip is missing. So I was basically trying to say, like, you don't have empathy. And so he would just laugh about it. He never denied it, or he would never say things like, that's not true. You know, I do care to a certain extent. And every time I would try to get him to see things from my point of view, when it came to emotions, or when it came to caring about the kids in a certain type of way, he would just be like, well, you know, I have to be hard, and I have to be this, or I have to be that. Or if I would be speaking in terms of me, he would be like, we don't have that type of relationship. But my whole thing is, if you have children with an individual, your concern should also be the care and growth of the person that you have the children with. You should always have some type of consideration or wanting them to be okay, because essentially if that other parent is okay, the children in turn are going to be okay. It's a trickle down effect. It's, you know what I mean? So he just never, like, as time went on, he was shedding that fake persona that he tried to put on when he first wanted me to come into his home. So like situations would happen, like I would be going through a lot of emotional things. Like I had lost my parents 2 years back to back. I lost my dad in 2016. I lost my mother in 2018. And it would just always be, you know, if I would just start crying or something like that, he would be like, you have to be an adult. You can't be crying. And it would just be so weird, because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just, you know, I'm going through a lot, you know, with losing my parents and being evicted, and just going through a lot of things emotionally. I felt alone at that point. I had kind of separated from the person that I was dating, or a little bit before that, and I kind of started to accept in my life, you know, I'm always going to be alone. You know, I don't have anyone to depend on or to care for me emotionally. So I was always going through that. And so I would have, you know, emotional times. I suffered from depression. So it was a lot of things going on. And me working so hard to build myself up after the divorce, or not after the divorce, but after him and I separated, and just I had to go full no contact for 5 years. And at that point, I had built up, I guess, my self-confidence against his fiery darts. And so being back around him, you know what I'm saying, just kind of made me just always feel weak, just always feel weak, always feel weak. And the fact that I was back in his house made me feel like I was defeated. It made me feel like, you know, I didn't have a choice. And again, my best friend, she was saying, well, you did have a choice. You could have come to my home and blah, blah, blah. And at that point, I don't know if it was because I had a lot of pride or because I was delusional, but I literally felt like that was the best decision to make. And people who knew my story and, again, were connected to me for a long time, who knew him, some of them, you know, not too many, but some of them were like, oh my gosh, you had to move back in with him. You know, I could remember my aunt saying, I have to send you some money, or let me wire you some money. We need to find you a place. And it was just, and I was just like, oh no, it's okay. Because I was really under a guise of thinking that this is going to work. This is going to be okay. What's the worst that he can do? The children are of age to know what's going on. They can see things. And he still took advantage of the situation in a covert way that they could not notice or they could not see, because they're just kids. You know, they're just thinking mommy and daddy don't get along. They don't know that it's a whole, it's education behind what's going on. There's psychological things that's going on. So they didn't understand any of that. So with that being said, I know I go off on tangents, but I really hope I'm helping. I really hope you can follow me with my conversations, because it's so much in here and, you know, weighing heavy on my soul about what I experienced with this guy. And again, oftentimes people don't feel like, people who've been through this don't feel like no one else will ever understand, because it's so much that happens. It's so much that they do to you. It's so much situations that, you know, you could just literally write a book about it. The next situation, or the next point I want to touch on, is recklessness. So with narcissistic behavior, recklessness is a big thing, because there's many forms of recklessness. You know, it could be things like what he would do. I'm just going to speak on what he would do. So when he first, because I was living in Cincinnati for about 13 years of my life, and once the woman that he was connected to, he found out she was going to die and all of these things, all of a sudden he had popped back into the boys in our life. And it was very strange, because he ended up finding out my address, which to this day, I really don't know how he found out my address. I don't know, you know, if it was Google, or maybe he, you know, I don't know. I had filed for divorce at the time, so maybe the court gave him my address because we were still legally connected, and they couldn't keep him, you know, away from us. Or so, you know, I don't really know how he found out. That's all I can say. But he came to the house, he knocked on my door, and I tried to stand my ground. I was like, you need to speak to my lawyer. This is his information, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't know what you want. It was crazy. I was like, I don't know what you want, you know, and I know what he wanted. He wanted to be connected to his boys. That was something that I did in the beginning. I was just like, he can't see these kids again. He's not worthy of seeing these kids. And who are we to make that type of decision? But how I should have done it was saying, okay, he will be able to see the kids, but he'll have to go through the courts to do that. So I never approached it like that until he ended up being on child support, which in turn, I ended up being able to file for divorce through the legal aid. And they stated that he has to be at the court session in order to, you know, have his rights, and, you know, you guys come up with a schedule that's good for you so he can have his parenting time. So around the time that we ended up, everything was going into full motion. Okay, let me go back a little bit. I'm sorry, because like I said, it's so jumbled up in my head how the sequence of things happened. Okay, so when he came and knocked on my door, and I told him, no, I can't open the door. And my daughter was like downstairs, and she was really little. She was like 4 or something. And she was like, she overheard what was going on. And she runs up the stairs and she tells the boys, she was like, oh my God, guys, Tyrone is here. And my boys automatically lit up. They were coming downstairs. They were like, we want to see our dad, blah, blah, blah. So I ended up opening the door for him against my better judgment. And it's really hard when kids are small like that. You can't, for me it was, I couldn't get them to understand or explain why they wouldn't be able to see him at that moment. So I ended up doing that. I met him at Taco Bell, and it was around the corner from my house. My mother and my big cousin was like, don't meet him, don't do this, don't do that. My mother, and rest her soul, we had our issues, but she was the one person to be able to detect that this guy is, not healthy for you. And, I guess she wouldn't be able to really know narcissistic things because she grew up in a generation where they really weren't focused on mental health. People did not want to go to counseling. They weren't focused on that. It was the church, the church, the church. So she knew something wasn't right, but she couldn't really put a finger on it. I guess it takes one to know one, because like I said before, she had narcissistic behaviors as well. And it's funny because I'll tell you an argument that they had, later on down the line. But anyway, so we met at the Taco Bell. I let him see the kids, and against my better judgment, while we were in the midst of divorce, instead of me just seeing how that would play out and then making him work to fight for his rights or whatever the case, because I didn't want to play his game, but I still ended up playing it, and we were still in the process of divorce. And I would say little things to him like, they want us to come to the child parenting classes on this day, and they want us to do this and they want us to do that, and he would just kind of laugh it off and joke it off. But I did not take it serious, and I should have opened my eyes to look at the situation like, he's literally not, he's going to do this the way that he wants to. He's not going to do this the right way. He's going to do it the way that he wants. So there's no accountability or there's no responsibility on his end. So I let it go like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm a non-confrontational person. I've always been that way because so much conflict that I witnessed growing up, so much conflict that I had in my own household with having an abusive parent. So I just was like, okay, I'm not going to give him any pushback. If he don't want to go to the parenting classes, I'm not going to make him, but we still getting this divorce, because that was the bottom line for me. I just wanted to be legally separated from this man. And mind you, I was already in a relationship at that time, which that didn't make it right, but that was the situation that was going on at the time. So and back then I had a lot more giving him the benefit of the doubt, because I was in ministry at the time. I was trying to start my life over. I was trying to just be nice. I was just trying to be nice. I was just trying to turn the other cheek and be loving and be understanding, because I knew, and I still sympathize with him, because he's been through a lot too, which has probably created him to be the way that he is to this day. So anyway, with that being said, I did not know that the woman that he left me for and that he was still with for the past, 5 to 7 years, that she had cancer. I didn't know anything I didn't know nothing about it. I just simply thought he was just coming back around and that he was still with her and whatever. So he was like, it was the day he was supposed to come and see the boys. He was like, I'm not going to be able to get the boys, or I'm not going to be able to see the boys. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I think I had something to do that day, so I was really dependent on him to be able to get the boys. So I guess he could detect a tone in my voice of disappointment because he was not going to be able to get the boys. So he ended up telling me that she he was like, there's something I need to tell you. And I was like, okay. I thought he was going to tell me like he was sick or something was wrong or whatever, or his mother was sick. I didn't know. So he ended up explaining to me that she was in a nursing home, his significant other, and that she had stage 4 cancer. So I was just baffled. I was like, oh my goodness. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay. And he was like, I'm not going to be able to come over there because she was letting me use her car. We got into it. And now she's saying I can't use the car to come see the boys. But he was like, I'm done with this. I'm done with her. And he was just dumping all this information on me. And I was just like, what? You know, I didn't, you know, and me being the person that I am, I'm always trying to be caring. That's how empaths are. We care to the 10th power, man. And we just try to do more and more, giving people the benefit of the doubt, but it's to our own detriment. So he was like, yeah, she's not, I don't know if she thinks I want to be with you, or, you know, I wasn't here for all the bull crap. I was just like taken aback at the whole situation. And he was just like, I don't know if she thinks I want to be with you, and she's probably just jealous, you know, because you still look good and her health is fading and she's starting to look a certain type of way. And I just was not here for all the information, but I was just listening and taking it in instead of having boundaries and saying, you know, whatever's going on between you guys is between you guys. You know, if you're not able to come get the boys, that's fine. I'll be praying for her, you know, may the Lord watch between me and thee, whatever. So, but I didn't, I was just listening. And at the time, like I said, I was in a relationship and my mother was still heavily involved in dealings with my children, and she helped me a lot with the kids. And she was just like, my mother had an attitude all the time, because she would just be like, you know, he's blah, 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 blah. You know, she would just be saying all this stuff. And so when we were to get the divorce, he did not show up because he was supposed to show up as well as I at least needed to help. He didn't show up and, you know, let his priorities lie elsewhere. And so we continued to move forward in co-parenting the children. I don't know what happened, but something happened to where he ended up relocating back to our hometown. And, you know, a lot of time passed. You know, I don't really know what happened. I guess after she passed away, he just couldn't take being in that city anymore, and he decided to go back to our hometown. And, you know, things went on as is. I allowed him to talk to his sons, you know, on video chat and things like that. And I was still in that relationship that I was in, still operating in ministry, still moving on with my life after the divorce was finalized. So things started not to work out with me and my significant other. And I literally, that's another, maybe I'll do a video on that. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But I started to see how it wasn't going to work. And my ex-husband had already said he was going to move back to the city that I stayed in, because he wanted to come and, you know, be with the children and things like that. So what happened was this. He ended up asking my mother, could he move into her apartment? Now, mind you, I stayed in the same apartment building with my significant other at the time, and my mother stayed upstairs. So we were all in the same building. It was just so much crazy. And then next door, my cousin and her family stayed in that building. And so it was just always something going on. So with that being said, my mother respectfully declined and told him, no, you know, my daughter is in a relationship. I don't want to have a conflict of interest. I don't want it to be any, you know, she didn't want any smoke with the situation, which I didn't have any. I said, if you want to do it, that's fine. I don't have an issue with it. You know, it might actually work out because he'll be close to the boys, blah, blah, blah. So whatever the case, she told him no, but he still was making a plan to come back to the city we were staying in. So During that time, my ex, the significant other that I was cohabitating with at the time, we cut all ties. We stopped dealing with each other, but he was still helping me. My father ended up dying a week after my ex-husband came back into the city. So people were like judging me. They were like, oh, she's dealing with both of them at the same time. And it totally wasn't that situation. He literally was staying with my mother. That did not work out. And my mother had drug issues. And so that's where that ended. And he ended up coming to stay in my apartment downstairs. So although I wasn't really dealing with my significant other on an intimate situation, he still was helping me, supporting me, taking me to work, you know. Shout out to him and all that he did at that time. But he was still a confidant, a friend. And people were looking at me like I was just dealing with them both at the same time, which, looking back on it, if I was there at that time now, like if I had the mind that I had back then, I wouldn't have done that. I just wouldn't have, I wouldn't have done that at all. I probably would have just stopped dealing with everybody because it was so stressful at the time. So with all of that being said, we had a difficult time. I can't even remember everything that happened when he stayed in my apartment. It was just, he was just being mean every day, cold every day. And I was taking him to work. I was just going above and beyond. And when he had first came back, it's so funny because he was like saying, he would say, this is what they do. They just drop all these hints and ideas just to try to see if you're going to bite. And, you know, he was saying, talking about his family and talking about how they were shocked that he moved back down. And I was like, what are they thinking about? You know, I was just asking. And he was like, well, I think they're pretty much expecting us to get back together. And I just kind of laughed it off. You know what I'm saying? And during that time, there were certain things that happened to where I thought, well, maybe we are supposed to be together. We are supposed to get back together. But I didn't let it go any further than a thought because his true colors and behavior superseded any of those fictitious thoughts that was in my mind. So when he had made that statement saying his family was pretty much expecting us to get back together, I was just like, well, I don't know what they expecting, but this ain't that, you know? So with all of that being said, you know, we just, he ended up, it was crazy how he ended up getting the apartment upstairs after my mom had left. It just was so much going on at the time. And I'm just going to respectfully leave that part out about my mom because my mom has passed away and she did the best she could with her life. You know, she made the mistakes she made, as we all do. So, with that being said, I got tired of staying in that area because I started to figure out that it was a less desirable area that people would want to live in. There was a lot of things going on in that neighborhood that I did not want my kids to have to go through or witness or be a part of. So I decided to move to a further out county, a different county in that state. It was a nicer place. It was peaceful. I love that place. I miss that place to this day. And that is the place that I ended up getting evicted from. So when we moved out there, he said he was going to help me move. He ended up helping me move. And my ex, my significant other that I was dealing with, like I said, he was still a friend, a confidant. We still communicated and talked. And they ended up partnering together to make the move happen. And shout out to them for being able to put whatever differences aside or whatever to do that. So when he found out how far it was that I moved away, he had an issue with that. He was like, this is gonna make it harder on me because you're moving all the way out here. But as a parent, it doesn't matter where the other parent moves. You do what you have to do to co-parent and be amicable for the child or for the children. So, you know, he complained about it, but he still would drive 30 minutes out the way to come and get the kids on the weekend, blah, 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 blah. So, with all of that being said, it was just so much that was happening over the course of time. There was an issue of him watching my daughter. He wanted to split the taxes because instead of him wanting to go and file his own taxes, he wanted me to file the taxes, and I give him a piece of it because he didn't want to file taxes because he was on child support, as well as the other child support order that he had with his previous child. So with all of that being said, we had so much conflict on different things, and I hate to say it, but at times I did give him some of the taxes because I just wanted him to shut the hell up. Whatever. Like I said, I didn't want conflict, but at certain times there were things that I would just be dead set on and be like, no, like this is not going down, because like I said, a narcissistic person is going to push and push and push and push and push and push and push until they can get more and more and more out of you. So that's just what the situation is. Let me touch on my next points because I'm just trying to give y'all all that I can. Like, I'm not like a professional YouTuber. I just know how to get on camera and give y'all what I have, and pour out, if that makes sense. So, yeah. So again, this is okay. So, let's get back to recklessness because I just want to make sure I just give y'all some points to the points in my notes, and I'm just gonna go from there. So, with the recklessness, he would be driving fast. He would do, like, when he first came back, he would drive fast. Like, if I would let him use my car to take me to work, he would just drive really fast, and he will be like, well, we made it here. As long as we make it here, that's all that matters. And that is a control tactic, and it's a way to instill fear in a person to kind of let them subtly know how dangerous that they are and the things that they will do. So not only did he do that with me in the car, but he would do that with the children in the car. And I'm thinking like, okay, why is he doing this? It would just be so strange. So, after like the second time that he did that, when the children were in the car, because he did it more than once in the car with me. But when he did that with the kids in the car, that second time, I was like, you cannot be doing this. I don't understand why you're driving so fast. You have to slow down. And he would be like, what? He would just totally minimize it and just act like he's not doing anything. And I told him, I was like, the two youngest children were in an accident before with my mom. My mom, she was bringing the kids back from her place and ended up in a car accident. And the car accident wasn't that bad. The kids came out unscathed. But, that was something that kind of still to this day, like, shakes my daughter up. My son, my middle child, he's not shaken up anymore, but it still bothers her. So at that time, it was still bothering them both, and I had to let him know, like, this is something that you just cannot do. So, let me see, where are we at? Jumping forward a little bit, during the last and final time I was staying in his home, remember I told you guys about the friend that would come over to get something out the tool shed, or come over at the same time every other day, or would come by past the house and honk his horn to let me know, hey, you know what I'm saying? This guy, like I said, this guy would come over, just unannounced all the time. He would even do this when I myself wasn't there, nor my ex-husband was there. So that means the children would be there by themselves, for a period of time. And I would tell the kids, like, all my children are really responsible. So at that time, I would tell them, don't let anybody in. I don't care if they knock or if they bam on the door. You are not to let anyone into this house. So one day I was talking to my ex-husband, and we were having a conversation because apparently we weren't on the same page about a lot of stuff. And he was like, why did you tell the kids not to open the door for my friend? I told this doesn't make any sense. You're telling them not to answer the door for him, and I'm telling them to answer the door for for him. And I was just like thinking, like, why are you telling them to answer the door for him and neither one of us is there? We don't know these people from a can of paint. I don't care how long you known them. You know, it could be 5 years, 10 years. I myself was just not comfortable with having a man in my home that I didn't really know like that, while I wasn't there or while he wasn't there. But he thought it was okay. Again, reckless behavior. You just doing stuff that don't make sense or doing stuff to benefit your need. You know, I don't know. Maybe he was having them come check on the kids. I don't really know what it was. But I just did not feel comfortable with that scenario. You know, not only is the kids there, but all of my personal belongings is there. I don't know this person, and neither do you really, so why are you letting them in? But he instructed the kids otherwise, and I just, you know, I don't think it happened anymore after that, but I'm not for sure. Another thing, there was times where he was monitoring my whereabouts. Now, when he bought the vehicle for me, he did this in a subtle way. He had a device on his separate car, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to know if you would rather have, because he had a device in his car that was like a hotspot or internet hotspot. So he asked me, would I rather have it in the new vehicle or should he keep it in his vehicle? Me thinking, you know, this is just a hotspot device. I was like, oh, I would definitely need that. That way I can cut down on using so much of my data when I'm using the GPS. I wasn't from that city, so I was still using the GPS after being there for so long because I just did not know my way. My sense of direction wasn't right. So I ended up taking the hotspot device. So come to find out, this hotspot device was also doubling as a tracking device. So it was on the vehicle at all times. So he knew where I was at all times. It would be times where he would be like, you know, why are you late from this place? Or why are you late from that place? And just whatever. So he would know I would be late. But unbeknownst to me, he would know exactly where I was at. So if I was stopping at the gas station or stopping at a friend's house or whatever after work, he would know exactly where I was at all times. And so one day I had just jokingly said, like, I know you be stalking me and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, he said something to the effect of, I know where you be at. And so then he ended up opening up about the car having the tracking device on it. So that was so creepy to me because not only are you, you have a tracking device on the car, but you're having your friends stop by every other day. Like, it was just so much stuff, y'all. I thought I was crazy, and that's where the gaslighting was, because I was like, am I tripping? Is this really happening? You gaslighting is basically where you're constantly questioning yourself, and that person like, you crazy, it's not like that, and you know, but it really is like that. And so that's why you have to operate in wisdom and discernment to really know what is going on with you and the inner workings of this person. That's why boundaries is so very important when you're dealing with people, because people will take your kindness for weakness, especially if you're a person who has codependency issues. If you are a person who draws narcissistic people to you, the main thing you need to understand is that you have codependency issues. You're always dependent on another person, whether it be emotionally, whatever. I had a very codependent relationship with my mother because she had drug issues, and I was just always into trying to trust that she was going to do the right thing, and just, it's so much, guys. It's so much. But because I had already had dealings with a codependent relationship, that mirrored a lot of the relationships in my adult life, because I grew up being a codependent. So that's why oftentimes when people who have parents or siblings or cousins or people that are in their close circle or family members in their life that have drug addictions, that other person also needs to go to counseling because they need to break up the codependent dynamic within that relationship. So it was a lot of stuff going on. So with that being said, I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, he's got this tracking device. It was just It was just scary, and I'm so thankful to be out of that situation because the element of control is gone. And to be honest, I'm still fearful. I'm still fearful because his modus operandi is popping up at people's doors. So, and just thinking he's gonna push down on you, not like physically, but mentally, bog you down, and give you a guilt trip and make you just let him in. And I had to explain to my son, he's not coming in this house if he knocks on the door. If he wants anything to change in regards to being in you guys' life, he needs to file a motion or go talk to the family law clinic so that he can be able to have rights to you guys. Another thing that I dealt with him while living in the house with him was his temper tantrums. He would just, and it's not, when you're an adult, like I do know some people who grown as hell and they be throwing temper tantrums and, and all that crazy stuff. Heck, even I do it sometimes, but, to a certain extent. But his would be more covert. It will be just these subtle little things that he will be doing. So we, of course, when you have a family of 4 or 5, there's always a lot of laundry. There's always a lot of clothes. So because it was times where we couldn't wash the clothes, we had so many clothes, and I would find myself washing 6 or 7 loads every time I had to wash because, I had kids, they had to go to school, I had to wash my clothes, he had clothes. So I hate to say it, guys, but at first I started out doing everybody's laundry in the house, including his. And with him getting up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or whatever he had to do, when it was time for him to find clothes, instead of him getting his clothes when they were dried and, separating them and folding him up, he just wouldn't get his clothes. So when it was time for him to get his clothes to get dressed in the morning, he would literally, I guess he couldn't find his clothes, so he would literally just pull all the clothes out and throw them all over the floor, throw them everywhere and leave them there and get his clothes that he was getting dressed for work, and he would leave the rest of the clothes there. And who do you think was left to clean up that mess? Me. So I called him out about that eventually because he did this for quite a bit of time. So, also another thing that he would do, is we had 1 bathroom. So of course, when there's more than 3 people in a house and you only have 1 bathroom, it's going to be times where somebody has to use the bathroom and they can't necessarily go at the moment because someone else is in there. So he would do stuff like when I would go in the bathroom, like the bathroom was right next to his room. And I would go in the bathroom, and I'm a woman, so I would take long in the bathroom. I would take my shower, like after I got off work, I would take my shower. I would have to use the bathroom, I would be lotioning up. I'd be doing all these things because I had to share a room with my daughter because me and my daughter were sharing a room. The boys were sharing their own room, and then he had his own room in the back. Excuse me. So what would happen is if he had to use the bathroom and I took too long, he would do stuff like slam on the wall, and it would startle me because I have PTSD. So he would just slam on the wall like super loud, and it was crazy. And I'd be like, well, I'm coming out, you know what I'm saying? But he would just do all of these different types of aggressive things, microaggressive things, just all of these just crazy things that it would just be like, what is wrong? I would just be like, what is wrong with him? Like, why is he like this? Why is he like this? And over time, it kind of made me more fearful. And whenever you start thinking about what you could or should do in a situation that's negative or not right, you need to get out of that situation, because I just started thinking, yeah, I should start some drama, between him and the girl that he was with. I was like, I should tell her who he really is and how he really is. And regardless of who he is or how he is, that wasn't my business. So I was like, no, I just need to leave, because I don't even need to insert myself in no type of drama, because I cannot take this at all. So, So he would do that type of stuff. When it came to dealing with the kids, you know, everybody knew, everybody in the house, it was like a silent agreement. Everybody knew, like, not to get on his bad side. He was super tall. That's another thing. So, and then I had a cat that, my cat was staying with us, and my cat would go hide under the bed because he would always be trying to, like, mess with her and just say, excuse me, just say different things, like call her name and just try to, like, I don't know what it's called when you, like, know you're a big person. Intimidation. He would try to intimidate the cat. He would try to intimidate me. The boys were afraid of him, not in no type of violent way, but I guess you could say like the normal father-son dynamics. But they knew that he would get loud and project his voice and yell and just be like, you know, just like really screaming and shit like that. So they knew I got to do this right. Like, and I would hear my son, and it was so sad. I hate to say this, but when their grades would come out, that was a more stressful time for the household. Like the kids, they would be so stressed out, because they wanted to please their father. You know what I'm saying? They want to impress him. And my son, my oldest son, excuse me guys, I'm so sorry. After he would leave the room with talking to him about his grades, I would hear my son say little things like, he always has to say something to bring me down, or he's always bringing me down. And I hate to say it, but I never said anything because I just thought it was typical father-son stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I wouldn't be privy or have knowledge of what he was actually saying to him back there most of the time, because the door would be closed. So that was another thing that I noticed. My sons would feel super intimidated by him. My sons would they would start to adapt his behavior, and just being nonchalant, just not answering questions when I was asking them. And so towards the end, I started to feel like, wow, I feel like all three of them are like ganging up on me with their behavior, their attitudes, and it was just crazy. Because naturally, when a child is around an adult, they're like a sponge. They're going to soak up their behaviors, their words, some of their thoughts, and some of their deeds. So that's what was beginning to happen, and it was so overwhelming to me. I felt like I was going to just have a breakdown. So that was another thing. And then, like, when I would call him out about certain things, like saying, you know, I don't want to watch your ex's kid, or I would tell him, like, I would be like, you know, this is too much. I can't handle this. She's coming over and blah, blah, blah. And he would just flip it and be like, so did I make you do that? And, you know, he would just be getting upset because I was speaking up for myself and effectively communicating that I did not want to do this, and I didn't like the fact that she just was always coming over every weekend. And he would just get really manipulative and get in my head and be saying stuff like, you know, another reason why I'm bringing her around here, because I want her and your daughter to be able to play together, and, you know, I'm doing this for you too. So he was trying to convince me. And, you know, for a minute, I kind of bought it, like, you know, okay, yeah, it'll be good for my daughter to socialize with another girl kind of like around her age, but she was a little bit older than her. And then another thing was making me so frustrated and mad. He would tell my sons to help her with her homework. Now, my daughter didn't need any help with her homework because she would just come home and she would just get it done. She would just do it. But the boys were in those critical stages of middle school, and they were really struggling in the areas of math and science. Like, they were having issues with that. And I would be like, they don't have time to help her with her homework. They got their own homework to focus on, and they are struggling. because he was like, they ain't doing nothing. They can show her how to do this. That's not their responsibility. So he collectively tried to use everyone in the house to help with this kid who had a bunch of issues. And her mother only had one child. So when I would bring these things to him, he didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that at times I would be standing up for myself, standing up for my kids, and trying to stand up for the household as a whole, saying, we don't need this extra baggage. And I had to tell him, you're always trying to bring other people's kids into our lives. No disrespect to the woman that passed away that he was dealing with after he left me, but he would be telling my kids, this is your sister, this is your brother. And I'm like, stop lying. That's not the case. Like, you're not gonna clean up your mess and try to polish it up and make it look beautiful to them and making them think that that's their brother and their sister. Now, their real brother that was his other son, I didn't have a problem with them being connected. But I also didn't want the responsibility of trying to make sure that they kept up with their brother, because that was him as a father's responsibility. So what he would do, this is another thing, this is, certain times I had to deal with him, or other times in my life where I had to deal with him. He was doing triangulation, and instead of him being able to have direct access with his son, his older son, he wanted me to take my boys over to the first mother of his kid, and make sure they had a relationship. And I'm sorry, but yes, that was too much responsibility for me. I didn't want to have to try to fix his issues and his problems. He needed to, everybody in his life was telling him, for the first child, you need to go to court. Go down there, apply for child support so that it can be a document in the system that you're taking care of your child. And you have to, and if you're paying child support, like right now he's paying child support, he doesn't have to, how can I say this? He has access to rights, but because he doesn't want to go to court and put in black and white what he is his times are, or who's going to get the kids for holidays, or if the kids are going to go stay with him for summer. He never wanted to do that work. He never wanted that accountability. He never wanted that responsibility. So his idea is, I'm just going to sit back and wait until they get grown, then I'll be in their life. Because that way I don't have to fight for it that hard. But men, I am here to tell you, if you are on child support or whatever the case is, if you have a child with a woman and you're saying they won't let you see them, there's nothing that can keep you away from that child, because you're going to fight. Especially if you're paying child support, you have more leverage to have your rights and access to your kids in the proper way, documented by the court. So anyway, let me see what other points I had. So with that being said, he was doing all of these things to try to ensure that things would happen by triangulating in a roundabout way, playing a person against one another, or manipulatively, like they're puppet masters. They know how to, they got flying monkeys, people to do their dirty work for them. And unfortunately, his sisters and his mother and at times his father and stepfather, they all were people that were, his brother. These are people that was instrumental being puppets for him and just doing whatever he needed. And not calling him out, not holding him accountable. They never did that because they were so afraid that he would blow up, as he would do what I've experienced with him for the past 20 years. So I'm running out of breath because, like I said, y'all, this is so much stuff I have to get out. The last point I want to touch on is how when we were living in his house during the pandemic and everything, the people that he was connected to, somehow these people always felt like they could approach me and come talk to me and come ask me questions and come say little out of pocket stuff to me. And I was getting tired of that. And I had to tell him, like, they shouldn't even have no type of, they shouldn't even feel like they have the authority to come even say nothing to me. I just live here. I don't want nothing to do with people that's connected to you. I can be cordial, I can speak, but as far as carrying on a conversation, as far as hanging out, as far as them saying, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? Can da 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 da? I did not want to deal with that, and he just did not like that. He was trying to make it seem like, oh, you're being difficult. Oh, you're doing this. Oh, you're doing that. But or you're causing problems, or it's always something with you. Why? Because I have boundaries, because I know how you try to manipulate. I know how you try to triangulate. I know how you try to gaslight. So because I have standards set for me and boundaries, it's a problem, because I don't want your ex to come ask me, oh, I want our girls to do this and that. And it got to a point where she wanted to come get my daughter for church, and that was fine. I didn't mind that. But after a while, I was like, this ain't happening no more. Like, a situation happened where she wasn't able to bring my daughter back, and I was supposed to go get her or something like it was, and that wasn't communicated. So I was like, I'm trying to keep stuff at a minimum. I'm already going through too much. I don't have time to babysit these people that you deal with and babysit their egos and emotions like you do. I don't know them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. I'll be cordial. Hey, how you doing when they come over? But I didn't want all the extra. And that's what he liked to do. I would always say he is the king of doing the most. He had to do the most. He had to involve every woman in his life together with each other, plus the kids. Why are you doing that? Because he wanted to surround himself around people who he felt was weaker vessels than him, that he could take advantage of. Even some of the men in his life. I would watch how he would be laying in the bed, and the friend would come over, and I'd be like, your friend is here. He'll be like, I know. And he'll just still lay in the bed. And the dude would knock on his window and was like, man, I'm out here. What's up? He'll be like, I know you out there. Like, he just treated people just crappy. Like, he just treated people crappy. With the job that he was working, he was people's garbage man. And he would literally treat these people like crap. He would do little favors for them. Like, if they couldn't pay their trash bill, okay, so he would do little favors for them, like when they couldn't pay their garbage bill. If they weren't like coming out and bringing him sodas or doing little nice stuff for him, or giving him like side wallets of or side envelopes of like extra cash, he wouldn't do it. And he would be like yelling at them like, call the office. I don't have to talk to you. It's not my job to be nice to you. All I have to do is come here and do my job. So he would just do these types of things when dealing with these people. And he would just always talk to me about these stories. And I would be like, you should do the right thing. You know, I don't know what to tell you. But I'll have another video for you guys soon. I just have so many stories about my dealings with him. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I hope you come back to watch another video from me. All right. You guys have a great day. Peace.